Let's see what Aiden has to say.
They deserve to make no money. None. And that's the stream. I hate them. They should make no money. Thank you for your time.
All right, cool. Pretty true. All right, good talk, guys. Yeah, so we're all basically pieces of shit. Don't deserve to compete in this game. Yeah, good talk. Good talk.
Basically, this whole thing is happening because there was a thread I saw because Hungrybox like posted his payout from Pound, which was like $800 for getting second at Pound, which is like a major. He obviously feels that $800 is low, and I think generally when you would think of an esport like as big as Super
pretty
Smash
true.
Brothers, you would probably agree that $800 is a pretty low payout.
Yep,
And then there was kind
agreed.
of a follow-up thread that Knuckles, who's like an EUTO, replied basically saying that like $10 more, charging people a $20 fee instead of like a $10 fee, although I think Pound technically charged a $15 bracket fee anyway. Basically, Knuckles was saying that could deter attendees, and it kind of started this like similar cycle of conversation that's been had many times before.
I'm basically just going to talk about like things that he says, and then I'll see what he says afterwards. But no, I don't think that's going to deter attendees at all. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's just not a long-term solution. Bro, I see fucking people ponying up for $500 controllers. They're not going to care if they have to pay $10 extra for singles entry. You're already paying thousands of dollars. I guarantee you it's not going to, like, $10 will not make or break any of these people. Yeah, he might agree. I'm just saying my takes. The issue is that it's just not a long-term solution. It's like a band-aid at best, and it is a band-aid. It will help a little bit short-term, but it's not sustainable long-term.
Doubling the prize pool doesn't really like solve anything, and I don't think doubling the prize pool actually even changes anything about HBox's tweet. If HBox made the same tweet and it was like $1,600, I think he could garner like the same reaction and same sentiment. And I think
hard agree. But you have to remember, even if you make 1,600 like 10 times over the course of a year, as opposed to 800, you're making an extra 800. That's an extra $8,000. So $8,000 over the course of a year. I don't know a lot of people who wouldn't want an extra $8,000 a year, right?
Keep in mind is when he's talking about doubling the pool, like this doesn't actually solve, it doesn't even change much of the context around his tweet, let alone solve the problem. People are going to come around to this as like, well, we shouldn't do the good thing at all. It's like, no, I've said a number of times that it's good to do that. It's still fine if you want to increase entry fees at majors.
Agreed.
It still does help people to some extent. $100 is nicer than $50. I'm not going to pretend that it's not, but you need to keep in mind that the $100 doesn't really solve the problem for that player. So prize pools are low.
So Blad's asking me if what would I've done if pounds if the pool is doubled. Let me see. Still top 8. 8,000 is way too low. I would still do top 8.
In Smash compared to other T1 and T2 esports. Like when you look at our
8,000 is very low. I would still do top 8.
Attendees, Smash, Ultimate, and Melee are pretty big games. Like when you look at our like amount of viewership, amount of attendees, Smash, Ultimate, and Melee are pretty big games when you compare them to like other big esports. They're not tier 1 esports, but I think we're like pretty firmly in like the tier 2 area in terms of viewership, players. Smash.
Threshold for paying past top 8, I would say probably 15 or 20K. Maybe 10K, but I'd say probably 15 to 20.
Gets a particularly crazy amount of in-person attendance, which other games are just like not capable of getting, basically. Being able to pull people out in person is something very unique to Smash and something that makes it special.
Yeah, I agree, Colin. I think it's actually a better way to describe it. If you're not getting over a certain amount of money for like 16th place, just save that for the overall pot anyways for the other players. I guess the way I would describe it is I would have a payout structure in place, right? And this is going to be super arbitrary just off the top of my head, but it's just an example, right? Let's say I have a payout structure in place for percentages of where I'd pay out. And I would make the threshold that once the next threshold like gets their venue fee or something back, right? Or maybe they get like $200 or they get their venue fee back. Then you go down to the point where once they would all get their venue fee or pay up or whatever back, then you pay out to that level, and then you keep going down and down. I think that probably makes sense. It doesn't have to be venue fee. It can be like $100, it could be $200, it could be the cost of a flight, whatever it is. I would say at that point is when you would start paying out to the next tier of player. Because realistically, like $15, I'm sorry, it just doesn't matter.
Two obvious cornerstones of this, right? One, we have way lower sponsorship revenue than these other games. We don't do a lot of like sponsorship sales compared to a game like
that doesn't have to be the case.
League of Legends.
Or if the payers would be 15 would feel insulting. I would say probably venue fee back, because venue fee at a major is pretty expensive.
Or
like maybe $100.
These games like have
something like
sales teams at companies that sell on the events and bring in a ton of revenue. Like when you see like a Mercedes sponsorship, that company is paying a bunch of money. Smash has historically been really, really bad at this. That's why Papa John's is such a big deal, because that deal is so big, especially for our community. There's never been a deal like that for the Smash community before.
Yeah.
Historically, these events have gotten almost no sponsorship money. And the few sponsors that are willing to work with Smash events pay really low because they know they can get away with it, or Smash TOs like do not have the tools to like negotiate properly.
Yeah. And with all due respect, the tools, there are actual tools they have, but a lot of them just don't have business sense. It's like, even if you have 2 people, right? The value of 100,000 unique viewers watching your stream doesn't change. The expected value you get from it doesn't change based on what someone else is offering, right? It's always going to be there. So if someone's going to make money on this, you can make them bid against each other. It's like a perfectly viable tactic. I don't think I've ever even seen someone attempt it, right? I think they're just scared of losing it. But at the end of the day, you have 100,000 viewers. If you have people who know that value, and you have people who understand that, there are ways to kind of pitch that in a way that I think none of the TOs really know how to do very well.
You need capital up front to pay a good salesperson a lot of money to sell on your event. Even for BTS, a company with a sales department, it took like years to get to a point where they
Melee is not poor. Melee is definitely not poor. There is money in Melee. Trust me.
Like, have deals of that scale, right? BTS is the closest thing to like a huge sales team, which is,
true.
And it's not big, that the Smash community has.
I'd agree.
And the other reason is a lack of developer support. So for a game like League of Legends, where Riot steps in, right? Riot is putting the money up to support the prizing in their game.
Yep.
Like Valorant or League. Esports is like kind of like a marketing expense, right?
Sure.
Esports around your game is like a way of sustaining and growing and like marketing the game and having people buy skins and things like that, right?
I talked about this yesterday. There is a big problem with Melee players that they don't actually understand how to interact with Nintendo. There are certain things I don't think Nintendo will budge on, like online things. I don't think you're getting them to budge on that. But there are certain things that they would budge on that I think Smashers, no offense, don't really know or have the know-how to like walk a fine line and actually convey these messages to them like properly, or even just have some kind of like corporate know-how and how to deal with them. So this is also a problem because I think a lot of people just genuinely don't know how to talk to Nintendo whatsoever. And that's very problematic. Panda did pretty well with it. Guess what? There's a circuit now. Yes, a circuit is still happening. If it wasn't going to happen, they would have told you. If it's delayed any bit, it's just from COVID. It's not because of Nintendo.
Right. So they have motivation to support and put money into the scene. Unlike us, obviously, Nintendo has not given us a lot of money over the years. They haven't supported prize pools. For whatever reason, I'm not going to dig into like why Nintendo doesn't support you.
I think it's probably the smart idea.
Nintendo doesn't give us money, right? So there is no dev money to support.
He thought very
us.
carefully about those words.
I'm not saying it's...
He thought very carefully.
I'm not saying... I'm not speculating as to why we don't have it. I'm just saying it's not there. So why do people want higher prize pools at all? Well, it supports our players, right? We want people to be able to play the game and earn money playing it. That's like a cool thing.
Yeah, again, I talked about this yesterday, but if you take Summit and Ludwig tournaments out of my winnings, I haven't broken 10K for a Melee lifetime, which is like I've won majors. That's ridiculous, right? I think I don't need to explain why that's ridiculous. That includes like large regionals, and I'm a top 5 player, top 3 player, right? You take Summit and LACS's out, I haven't even broken 10K. Ludwig has paid me more than every non-Summit Melee tournament combined for competing in Melee. Ludwig has given me more money than every non-Melee on every non-Summit Melee tournament combined. So this isn't just a trickle-down issue with like lower-end top 50 players or like top 20 players. This is like I'm a top 5, top 3 player, right? So I agree that even if it's harder, that just shouldn't be, in my opinion, in my genuine opinion. Obviously, I have some bias. That just should never be the case. That's absurd to me.
It makes it more viable for people to continue competing. If I'm investing a lot of time in Melee, this like hobby, and I get good enough, I want to be rewarded for it. Because eventually I have to cave. I have to go get...
I do think it should be stated also that you're not entitled to be rewarded for it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that someone who... I don't even know what I can liken it to, right? Like, someone just plays solitaire all day. They're not entitled, even no matter how good. I don't know how hard of a game solitaire is. The first thing that came to my head because it's like a shitty phone game. It's like, you're not entitled to money for that, right? And so if that were the case, I probably wouldn't have done it in the first place. I think the issue we have is that there are people with money in the scene and there's viewership, right? It's like there's 50,000 to 100,000 people viewing Melee tournaments. And so when you're competing in front of that number of people, that should be monetized. We're generating value that we're not getting back. We're very clearly, and a lot of people say, oh, it's like, when top players just like don't do it full time then. I'm sorry. When's the last time a tournament that didn't have like a top 5 player got substantial viewership? Right? Like, think about it. When's the last time that happened? People said, oh, there'd be new top players. Yeah, but where's the storyline at that point? Melee is definitely very storyline driven. And so you do, in a sense, need the top players to kind of push those narratives and storylines forward. Otherwise, a lot of people would lose interest. It's just unfortunately like the way the game works. And I don't even think it's a bad thing. It's how it is, right?
Playing Smash that much, but if I can get paid for it, I can continue playing Smash and working on it, right? And then it's also like a hype marketable thing,
Sure.
right? $1 million tournament is like a very cool headline and marketable, something that somebody would want to get involved with. That's going to attract a lot of attention.
Because I
Then
appreciate
all of a
it.
sudden more money comes in through sponsors and other
Agreed.
people that want to partner
Sure, I
with
agree.
that event. So what is this like ecosystem, or like what do prize pools look like for other games? I just thought we'd start off with like normal sports.
I like
Prize
this. This
pools
is good.
pretty much don't matter, right? Like when you talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
like the NBA finals,
You get
when
your
talk
player
about
salary.
the Super Bowl. Not
Salary
a lot
and
of people are
sponsorships.
talking about the prizing of like what the team wins. It's
Agreed.
more about like the pride, the notoriety. Well, like, why is that the case? It's because all of those guys are getting paid like massive salaries, are supported by like a team. If you're good enough,
Yep.
like, and famous enough as an individual, you have brand deals for yourself.
Yep.
Like, you have so many other paths of income, and that make it possible for you to pursue your passion or your desire to play that game. You're not worried about like money in the Super Bowl final. You care about winning the Super Bowl final because you fucking care about playing football. It's not about
agreed.
the prize money at that level.
To be fair, it's not about. I'm sure he'll go into this, but it's not about the prize money at that level because they don't need money to live, right? The average professional athlete makes how much money? Probably, I'd have to assume it's well over $1 million a year, right? They don't have prizes because you don't need prizes at that point. And like for Melee players, a lot of us don't play for the prize money, and I'm sure he's gonna like this. I'm sure this is like exactly what he's going to say. But a lot of us don't play for the prize money. We pay because we want to be the best, but it comes to a point where it's like right now I need prize money to be comfortable, right? And it sucks because I'm trying to work on stuff that'll make me better long term, but it feels like sometimes I have to give that up and just try when I really would rather work on stuff because I just kind of need it right now. But it's such a puny amount anyways. Obviously there are things that I can do better, which I've gotten into, but at that level you don't need prize money.
And that's kind of the position you want to be in, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then as far as esports go,
Precisely.
let me just take a quick look. Let's start with Dota, because Dota's the only game where it does matter.
Yeah.
Dota is like the exception to the rule where the prize
agreed.
pool is so fucking big. It's
Agreed.
all you care about.
Yeah.
The game isn't big enough anymore to like stream as an individual and become like this like talent superstar influencer anymore, right? Like not a lot of people are passively watching individual Dota streams.
Sure.
And honestly, the team investment, as far as I know, like is relatively low to other games because your focus, all of the focus around Dota, right, is winning TI. For those of you who don't know, the TI prize pool is now over $40 million. If you win TI, you as 1/5 of the Dota team get paid like fucking like $4 million now. Wow. It's insane. $4 million as the individual of 5 on the team. Dude, if you get last place in TI, you still make a shit ton of money. So your focus around qualifying for TI and like doing well at TI shapes everything with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That community. TI is the focus of Dota.
That makes a lot of sense.
You don't have an alternative to become successful in Dota at the moment. You don't become a Dota influencer, right? That's like when prize pool does matter, right? Where it gets to this like insane scale where one tournament fucking changes your life. You know, Smash could probably have like a $5 million tournament, and if you won it, it could probably change a lot of people's lives, right? And then maybe that one tournament with that one big enough amount of prize pool would be enough to like kind of build and like plan everything around. But that's not the case, right? And then we're going to go to other games to show that that's not normal. League of Legends is the biggest game in the world, biggest esports in the world by a lot. And the prize pool for winning worlds in League is like the whole prize pool for the whole event. Dude, what's it like $2.5 million, $3 million?
That's how many people, yeah.
Low.
That's going to be pretty low.
Intentionally does this, right?
That's going to be pretty low.
It's like the Super Bowl. It's like the NBA Finals. It's winning worlds is not about
I think it's probably hundreds of competitors that are all getting paid out. Teams take cuts.
Have franchise leagues
it's not gonna be that much.
where you get onto a team, you get paid a really good salary, you get fucking taken care of, and you have all the things like in your life paid for so that you can pursue playing professional League of Legends. The ecosystem is taking care of you, not as a winner of worlds, but as a professional player as a whole. That is like a more, holistic esport ecosystem probably, where like becoming a pro is enough to sustain yourself and not like getting first or second.
For the record, that's kind of where I wish it would go. I made this point yesterday, but Melee players are comically bad at monetizing, and also our content is horrendous. If you look at our biggest content creators, they're literally Awesome Sauce and GR Smash, and then it's a massive gap into I don't even know who would be next. Yeah, Melee stats might be the next one. And all of the Melee videos that do well like aren't even from Melee content creators. So I think our content overall is like pretty shitty. It's not even that it couldn't be good in another game, but for Melee and for like what Melee YouTube viewers consume, it's not very good. Pretty clearly. Even our streams, like for me, I have to practice a lot, right? I'm practicing 5 or 6 hours a day. And so, unfortunately, I have to do that on stream. And I know that that's not great content. Like, sure, you guys love when I sit here and play Mango, play Zane, play Wizzy, right? But realistically, like, is that content, right? Is that something that the average Melee consumer is just going to click on because they can't wait to see it? Not really, right? Even when we do sets, it's not really. It's not what we want to click on. And so it's hard to really figure out where you want to draw the line. And so you have a few options at that point. If someone can give me some kind of like alternative, I would love it. I'm not saying there isn't a way. I just personally don't know it yet. Right? So my option now is I can do the 4 or 5 hours grinding off stream. And then after I've exhausted myself doing 4 or 5 hours of off stream, I can now stream for another 4 or 5 hours doing Melee stuff, variety stuff afterwards. And then after that, like I still have to take care of the rest of my day. And that's pretty, that doesn't seem very realistic, does it? I don't have the money to be able to do that. I used to stream like 14, 15 hours a day when I was starting out. And that's what it takes if I want to do. My content was shit back then. So I'm not saying that I should have made more money from it. That's the amount of work it would take if I wanted to balance everything. At that point, I almost, not to blame teams, but I almost feel like it does fall on the team to like help you monetize it. Because my goal is a competitor, right? I'm trying to be the best in the world. And I don't know that I myself can balance all of that to the best of my ability. It's like Paul does stream highlights for me, but unfortunately I don't have effort to put in to do this other stuff because I just literally don't have the time. I don't have it. I already barely have time for my family as is. I already don't get to hang out with Emily as much as I wish I could, right? So it's pretty hard for me to figure out where I would actually draw that line. And again, that's like on me. To some extent, I need to find ways to make it more manageable for me. But I don't think we have a formula for that yet. And I think more effort should be put into figuring out what that formula is to capture that casual audience that clearly is there. Because Panda does channel content, but they do mostly Ultimate because Melee doesn't get clicks for them. Edwin, I put over 300 hours a month into Melee, and I am currently broke. I have less than $10,000. Some of it's because I had to help my dad, which unfortunately blew up in my face. But I have literally less than $10,000 right now to my name, which is very just stressful after taxes.
And prize money, I think, probably
despite
does
how much
matter
effort I put into being a top 3 player.
But at the end of the day, the teams invested in Tier 1 CS are paying their players a lot of money. Getting onto a T1 pro team in CSGO is a path to success. You do not have to be the winner of the major to be making a lot of money and sustaining your career. Basically, the idea is that the games are relying on the prestige of the tournaments to matter. And that you want an ecosystem where becoming a pro at a low level.
I make probably like half minimum wage. If I had to guess, I probably make like half of minimum wage. Maybe.
Is what sustains you. So what is a success? What does a successful esports player look like? You get good results, become a professional player by getting a team sponsor who supports you and pays you. You hopefully make content and become a personality of some kind while you exist as a pro. Even as a professional sports player, that is basically your ideal path for success.
Yeah, agreed.
Is like becoming an icon outside of the game or enough as an individual that when you stop playing the game, you continue to be successful. A really good example of this right now is Tarek. Tarek played CSGO, was a really good CSGO player, won the fucking major, let's go C9, is now one of the biggest Valorant streamers and makes probably way more money doing that than he ever did playing Counter-Strike as a pro player, even though he was making a good amount of money when he was on pro teams. What are like...
Fuji, yeah, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. I still think that we're not capturing the casual audience very well yet, though. For Melee, but I think that they're experimenting, and that's good. Like, we need to try more things.
Problems after like discussing a lot of this. We want to support our players properly, and the conversation often revolves around making the prize pool higher.
Yeah, so again, I'm gonna say this. I've said this before. I completely agree. Prize pool like shouldn't be the way. To me, I treat prize money as like extra money in the bank, right? Extra money in my pocket. I know Smash World Tour I didn't go to, but that's because my hands were actually giving out. And if I felt like if I played that weekend, I would do serious long-term injury to them, which I couldn't afford. But I treat prize money as like extra money. I try not to think about the prize money, and I really try to model like my income and my payout structure based on what I get from Twitch, lessons, right, Panda, etc. Even like YouTube, right? I'm losing money on YouTube every single time I pay Paul. The reason I keep doing it is because I think that it's helpful to my stream to keep doing YouTube, but I need to restructure my YouTube content as well. So even YouTube is costing me money right now.
because we think that's better for players.
And again, that's on me. I need to get better content on YouTube because I think there's clearly an audience there.
It's more like reflective of the reward of putting a lot of work in, and we want to keep our top players in the game, especially lower level pros who kind of sustain the scene in a way. A lot of the impact of the players who are like ranked 20 to 100 is often forgotten about because that
hard agree. Like those people make tournaments significantly more interesting. It's like when you get the really hyped top 64 matches that create like a lot, like you get hyped top 64 matches because of how good that tier of player is getting. And so you get people who are like good enough to consistently challenge top players, and that's why like top 64 Genesis was so fucking crazy, and top like 64 functions can be wild. It's because those people do make up actually a very large portion of what makes a lot of the tournaments exciting.
That's like the upcoming talent and the people competing in the ether that sort of sustain a lot of the competitive scene. I wanted to get to why raising entry fees does not work in Smash and the FGC, why it doesn't fix this problem. And we can start with HBox. The best players already make the most money. The people who are securing the prizing at the biggest events already have all the resources and the support of the other aspects of the scene. HBox is a co-owner of Team.
Again, disagree. I think you're looking too hard at like Mango, Zane, Left, and HBox, but like I don't have that at all. I straight up don't have that. I'm not going to go into my salary numbers, but I have a hard time even getting like any substantial contract anywhere. And again, I have like less than $10,000 to my name. And I work just as hard as all of these people. I could definitely do better for content, but to me, I feel like I get what he's going for and I agree to an extent, but a lot of these people have been there for like 10, 15 years. And when you're a new top player, and it's like, I love Zane to death, but Zane's stream like doesn't do particularly well, right? Zane's stream, because he doesn't put that much effort into it, he'd have to invest a lot of effort into it compared to like what it could be, right? But like Mango, HBox, and Left, and yes, they've done it. They've also been here for 15 years. And I think it's almost harder to be a new player. I don't think Zane's a bad streamer. I think he just focuses on melee when he streams. I actually think Zane is a good streamer when he wants to be. He just always wants to be focusing on melee when he's playing. I think he's pretty entertaining when him and Moki play and do their thing. But there have been household names for like 10 to 15 years. I think the issue here that Aiden might be somewhat overlooking is that for someone like me or someone who's breaking into that top 10, top 5 range, for us, it's actually very hard. We don't have any of that, right? And I don't want to make this sound like, oh, poor me, because that's really not my point in doing this. But I don't have the big contract from Panda. I don't have the big Twitch contract, right? I don't have the big Twitch stream that Mango or HBox do. Or Leffen when he like really, really grinds it, or the viewership, right? Or the sponsorship opportunities. I don't have any of that. I get all the hate they get, unfortunately, but I don't get all the stuff that they do. And so I'm not in the position that he thinks that I think the top melee players are. And I think Moki is going to be in a similar place when he gets there. I think Moki is going to have the same issue. I think Jmook's going to run the same issue. Luckily, Jmook, I know, has the support of his parents. His parents are very supportive of him playing Melee, so that's great for him, right? I know Zane probably would have had that problem, but his parents were very supportive of him playing Melee. But you have someone who maybe doesn't have the circumstances, a la me or Moki, and all of a sudden, we're going to struggle really, really hard. In fact, I'm taking care of my family financially right now because my dad has... Not to throw this guy on you guys, but even despite everything my dad pulled on me these past 3 months, which he was objectively shitty to me, he like has cancer right now that spread to his brain, and unfortunately I'm his proxy, and I have to take care of him despite all the shit he did to me. And so even that, it's like I don't even have that. I have to take care of those people. And when you have someone who's in that spot, there's nothing we can do. It's just a really shitty situation. That's why I advocated for the Bandit, because it gives me a little something more to work with while I try to establish myself, which is why I was pretty like, yeah, it's not long-term, but it'll help me now.
Team Liquid. He gets a Team Liquid salary. He streams to a massive audience because he has a huge following. He makes way more money doing those things. So the difference between $800 and $1,200 or $800 and $1,600 means nothing to HBox.
Nothing to him. To me, it would mean a lot.
When it's such a marginal portion of your income, that difference doesn't change very much in your life. And that $800 is just going to go to him who already has a lot of money. It's not to say that people shouldn't be rewarded for good play, but I'm just stressing that point. One thing where like Knuckles was wrong is I don't think boosting the cost of brackets is necessarily a big deterrent to people already spending hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. People are already spending $1,000 to go to a tournament. They're not going to be mad about an extra. They might be mad about it. They're not going to not spend an extra $10 or $20 to enter. That's just fucking stupid.
Is paying $200 for their weekend at a major. 210
probably Nicholas, yeah,
is not going to move the needle. But
probably
upping the bracket fee, like we've said, like isn't going to fix any of these problems really either. Where it does matter, if
I wouldn't do it for locals. I do not think locals should change, but also if you're a top player, my humble opinion, you shouldn't be going to locals to sustain yourself anyways, because that's just kind of silly, right? Your time is better spent elsewhere. Regionals may be slightly higher for regionals. I could see like $20 for regionals being fine, because regionals you're still going to spend a little bit of money. But majors, yeah, I agree that majors, even if it's $30-$40, it's not going to be a deterrent. It's just not.
The local increasing from $10 to $20 is a big deal because I'm paying it over and over again. Maybe I have to take a lot of my time out of the day to drive there, and I could just stay at home and play Slippy.
Yep.
It's not matching the spectacle and experience of a major.
Don't do it for locals.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about is Moxie, who's a great person, had a tweet about this, which is venue fees and bracket fees should be increased at major tournaments. If you can handle $200 plus hotels and flights, you can handle 10 to 20 more to support the livelihoods of the people that make the game as fun and exciting as it is. So not.
I somewhat agree. I agree with principle, but again, I'm gonna let Eamon talk after I do. Oh, I called him Eamon. I'm gonna let Aiden talk after I do. Just because I don't want to like give my opinion after it, because I want it to be like my opinion, and then I'll see how his lines up with it, just because I feel like that's a more genuine experience. I agree that they should be rewarded. I also think you could just get that from sponsorships though as well. Like in my opinion, in a world where we don't have to deal with prize money as like our main income, I'd rather that sponsor money go to help those people instead, rather than just add a little bit of extra money to the pop bonus. Me personally, as long as the rest of like the players are taken care of and we don't need to worry about that.
Every player is in the same position, and that's important to keep in mind. And I don't necessarily agree with this sentiment. I don't think it means or harms a lot to increase the prize, like the bracket fee, by $10 so that the prize pool is a little bigger. I actually don't think that's a problem. We could just say fuck it and do it, but I think what's important is it doesn't actually change anything.
Yeah, exactly.
We've already talked about like the first part of this, which is that the top players winning the majority of the money already get the most support from their sponsors and other like streams of income. The increase.
Also, to be fair, if you're not like a top 10 or 20 player and you're full-time melee, I don't know why you're doing that. That's like you either are set and you don't need the money anyways, or so those people are the people who need the money because they're people who live off of melee, right? But if you're someone who's like top 100, you shouldn't be going full-time melee right now anyways, unless you're literally able to, in which case the prize money shouldn't be that big of an issue anyways. You did that, right? I did it because I was forced to. I did it because I was in a very unique situation where I had nobody that I could live with. I had to live with an ex-girlfriend of mine. And the only thing I could do immediately to make money, especially because I was getting over a lot of illnesses and death in my family, was literally play melee short term. And that's the only way I was going to pay bills. I was kicked out of my house for not finishing my semester of law school when I had to take care of like my grandfather dying, with maybe $100 to my name. And the only thing I could do short term to pay rent immediately was melee. So in a weird way, I kind of got forced into it. There's nothing else I really could have done at the time, unless I wanted to take an even bigger risk, which at the very least I knew I could make some money off melee and lessons and streaming. I was in a little bit of a different spot. I think that's definitely an anomaly that not the average person would have to deal with.
Increase in pricing, like in HBox's example, right? Say it was $1,200 instead of $800. If it was $20 entry instead of $15 entry, like he's suggesting, that doesn't change anything for HBox. Like the payouts at the top are the majority of what we're paying into when we increase the entry fee. And I think the players that Moxie's like highlighting are probably not like MK Leo and Spargo, who have like really good sponsors and probably make a lot of money outside of their pricing.
Agreed.
Talking about the lower level pros in that rank like 15 to 50 range who do not have a great sponsor, who do not make a lot of money, and probably deserve to be paid more. And getting money through their performance and their in bracket is a way of them getting more money. But why isn't this very effective? When you talk about increasing the pool, let's say it's a jump from $10 to $20. We're talking about a jump from maybe they're getting $100 instead of $50. That doesn't pay for shit. That's a fraction of what they even pay to fly out and stay at the major that weekend.
Agreed.
That's what doubling the pool does. It gets from that small amount to that next small amount.
For that tier of players, it's like even rougher.
Neither are enough to make it a career.
Hard agree. For that tier of player, it's like the difference between 50 and 100 when you're traveling an entire weekend. Because like think about it, right? They're like, well, they're still that extra $50. It's like, bro, they could have gone to a local, saved all the money that they spend, and made way more money back in that short period of time, right? So unless you're getting them to like hundreds and hundreds or $1,000, there's really no universe that amount of money is going to be worth it for that player. That's not the type of money that they need or that they're looking for, almost at all. Because right, they could literally stay home, not travel, go to a local or stream, and they would make way more money without losing the $1,000. Having
Still
been there
need
before.
to climb up the ranks, become a better player in the top 5, top 10.
But even then, it's like when I was getting top 8s, like I got $100 for getting top 8 at Big House. Like I'd get $100 for getting top 8 at SmashCon. So, and even as like a top 10 player, I wasn't getting paid anything at all. As a top 10 player, I think I made 20,000 my first year as a top 10 player total, 20 or 30,000, including streaming and locals and stuff.
And that was doubling the prize pool. So what's the next thing? Should we triple the
I think it was
prize pool?
20,000.
Should we quadruple the prize pool? To say that that $250 is going to be meaningful in keeping them around in Smash longer, in letting it be a full-time job for them, it's like it's not realistic with living expenses in any sense, right? It doesn't match what an actual job or sponsorship would be in any sense. What do we want? If we're stuck on prize pools, if it had to be done through prize pools, we need to get to like a Dota level, right? Not literally dollar for dollar Dota level,
agreed.
but using Dota as an example,
Yeah,
where
hard
prize
agree.
pools are so overwhelmingly the majority of way that the average pro
And that's not
player
realistic
can
for
find
us.
their money in the scene. You have to consider that
That's just
even
not
if we
realistic for
get
us
like
at all.
enough sponsorship money to make that possible, say every event gets $100,000 sponsorship from whatever company, that fee is not obligated to all go to players, right? It's going to be split among staff, support, broadcast, and then deepening payouts in general,
this
right?
video,
It gets split
just
among
remind me.
so many people. That isn't a raw 100K that you're just going to send at players. There's a
Yeah,
bunch of
agreed.
underpaid people participating in grassroots Smash event
Agreed.
creation. That amount of sponsorship money needs to be so big that the person getting 25th winning money at top 32 at a major is still getting paid enough for that to matter. And I think
Like
like the closest
$1,000.
we've gotten to this is Smash Summit 11 and Ultimate Summit 3, where 13th was getting like $2,500.
Yeah,
What do we
hard agree.
what's like the actual solution then? Like what's a more realistic way of like getting money into the scene and like helping people? You need enough interest, viewership, and sales activations in the
Yes.
games that teams
Marketing
want
and sales is like literally key.
to sponsor players for their skill or stream notoriety.
100%.
Having a salary, having like basically a job with a team that provides them with benefits is what they need over trying to win prize money occasionally at every tournament they go to. And then in turn with the sponsors that they get, hopefully leverage like a following or stream or something like that for more brand and influencer opportunities so that when they retire, they like have something left after they leave all of this, right? How do we get there? You got to watch more. Viewership is like the core component of this. Watching more Smash streams, more tournament streams, getting your friends into it, encouraging people to fucking watch more in general. Obviously, it's not every like an individual.
Also, at the end of the day, our content just has to be better. Like if the player's content's better, I know I spoke this earlier, but I want to emphasize it. If our content is better and we have a way to, if there's like a streamlined way to do said content, it'll be so much better for all of us.
Individual doesn't have the power to change this, right? And there's a bunch of things that the community could do, the community leadership could do to shift and increase viewership. I'm not like putting the blame on you guys, for example, but if you wanted to like help, right? You watching more fucking tournaments and watching tournaments between majors, like boosting viewership on the whole is.
But ranked will die out soon at some point too, Cam. Ranked is like a short-term boon, and it'll be what you do with that viewership increase that makes it more interesting. If your goal is to sit there and play ranked all day, you'll have like a good month or two, and then it'll go back to normal. So when ranked comes out, the goal is going to be not just to play ranked all day, but what can you do with ranked? How can you make it interesting? How can you get that viewership in and then keep it? That's something that I've needed to be better at, that I've realized a lot.
With all this support, with all this opportunity for pros, low-level pros will still struggle, especially in a 1v1 game, I think. And I think tennis is a good example where there's a lot of like lower-level pros who are basically playing paycheck to paycheck, even though they're fucking incredible in one of the most popular sports in the world. And that's because they have so many expenses associated with the sport they play.
That's unfortunately just true.
We will probably struggle with that forever, no matter how good we get. And I think that's something to keep in mind. It's like that the problem always exists to some extent, but our low-level pros making like 50,000 a year or like even 30,000 a year, if you were like the 50th best player in the world, right? That's a really fucking great thing. That's like that's an income that like could sustain you versus where we're at right now, where a lot of people don't make next to any money, are struggling to get money from tournaments they enter, which don't pay out very much.
And which is not where you want to be making the bulk of your money.
Entry fees is not.
It's just straight up true.
Okay, so Brandon's making a good point. I think more than just telling us to watch for viewership, there has to be a way to make it more entertaining.
Yep, agreed. Our content's bad.
This is what I tried to like say at the end of like the actual lecture, if you will, or the rant, me asking you guys or telling you guys to just watch more is like not actually the solution, right? No single person by just like watching a bunch more is going to change this issue. More like holistic solutions need to be introduced by like community leaders and figures to raise viewership. And there's a bunch of different ways to
no, ranked will be big for at least a little bit. It depends on what we do with it.
Doing that, right? The product could be like more entertaining and better put together.
Agreed.
There could be like a structured circuit that keeps top players attending events on a frequent
Nintendo
basis,
and Smash
so
Tour.
that like narratives are easy to follow.
Melee
Stories
lives
are
off
developed.
narratives.
Like,
We've talked about
think
that.
about how much momentum came out of Genesis, right? Viewership for Melee at Pound was amazing. And so was their viewership for Ultimate. Their viewership was really fucking high compared to like an average event in like the past like 6 months, right? Because Genesis, a huge event that a lot of people remember, like tuned in, watched, realized why they love these games again, and then the viewership momentum carries on. And if you think about like 2014 or like 2015, when viewership was really, really high, right? We had a pretty like keystone major basically every couple weeks or every month. SSS, a local in SoCal, was hitting like 5,000 concurrent viewers over and over and over again. Obviously, these things are dependent on other trends that have to do with like attendance and interest in the game. But why was SSS like so crazy in that way? It's the same time, same day, like Sunday. SCL is probably the best example of this.
SCL was really good.
Week 1 of SCL had like...
SCL was a great for viewership for everyone. As much as we complain about the format, the SCL viewership and boon for like sub count and everything was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was amazing for stream.
Okay, decent viewership, but then watch as the fixed
amazing.
The fixed day progresses as each SCL goes on. It's something to follow.
No, agreed, Jang. But at some point, like, you don't have the resources to invest into finding the answers, so you just have to take what's in front of you. It's like it's a conundrum, right? You see this all the time in the real world, where it's like people need to climb out of their holes, but if they don't have the means to climb out of their holes, they have to just keep doing what keeps them in the hole, right? Because sometimes they don't have another way to get out of the hole. You need help, or you need another type of intervention.
Thing to tune into. It had like a structure that
the people who need to find those solutions can't be the people who need to do what they're currently doing just to eat for that day or just to pay rent, right? It's just that's not
easy
feasible
for like the average fan to latch onto, and they have something to look forward to watch next week. It wasn't even that like special of a tournament, right?
No, it wasn't. It was pretty bad actually.
Because
it was amazing.
It was week to week, had all the top faces participating in it. It had these like rising stars given opportunities. There's consistency to the broadcast with
that's
all
why
of the
locals
top
do well
people
right
and
now.
Interesting narratives. Like there was a bunch of things to follow, and we've been in this space for a while now where like tournaments are really, really sparse, and TOs like don't coordinate super well about like their dates and how their tournaments like flow together, which isn't necessarily like their fault. I think it's like really hard to do that because like in this grassroots space where you're just fighting to like make your event happen, it's really tough.
Agreed.
All of those things, like if we had like a Genesis-esque major every, like say we had a super major every 4 months, or sorry, every 3 months, and then like a smaller major every month in between, and that was like and then with like some sort of reoccurring like smaller events in each region that were scheduled on the same channel and happened every week, like there would be things to follow, progression,
agreed.
Like progression,
which is hopefully why COVID was a problem.
What keeps people invested.
I will say it's also part of why I feel guilty about pushing the online sucks and is dead narrative. As much as also to be fair to myself, as good as I was for the first year and a half, because I was one of the only people who didn't bitch about it and try to dismiss it, I feel guilty for caving at the end because I do think that narrative is really important, and so I shouldn't have done that because I contributed in some way to like lack of an interest, I guess.